Hello, viewers. Welcome back to Vibing with Mr. Marvelous. Today we have very important guests, as always. They're all important, no matter what walks of life they are. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having you. Tell the viewers about you and stuff like that.
So I am a first grade teacher in America in Florida, and I've been teaching. I just finished my 12th year, all in first grade, and I love working with kids.
Fantastic, fantastic. Before I ask you more questions, it's really about the grade school system in the US. So, viewers, your trivia question, as you know, there's always a trivia question. What is the difference between secondary school or high school? So, what's the big difference between secondary school and high school? I'll give you 5 minutes before we give you that answer. Michelle, so you teach grade school. And how long you been teaching grade school?
12 years. Just finished my 12th year.
12 years?
Yes.
Oh, you started when you were 12?
Right.
Like a baby?
I started right out of grad school. I had my
Okay.
student teaching at the school I'm at, and I was hired during my student teaching, so it was great. I got to learn from a mentor while I was teaching, so it was great. Yeah.
And grad school, you got your master's.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What area?
So I actually got it in literacy and education because I thought I was weaker in that, and then I ended up falling in love with it. I wanted to have a strong foundation in reading so that I could teach students. I thought I was always a math person, and then I fell in love with literacy. And until 4 years ago, I only taught reading and writing. And then now I'm self-contained, so I teach all subjects. I have one class all day instead of switching. So I teach them reading and writing, science and social studies, and math.
And what age group is that?
So they're 6 and 7 years old.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And now, curiosity, what college did you go to?
University of Florida.
The Gators.
Yes.
All right. The Gators in the house.
Yeah.
All right. Very nice.
Yes.
Massive school over there.
Yes. Yeah.
Big university.
It is huge.
Well, congrats.
There's
Congrats.
50,000 people. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Huge, yeah.
So when you you teach grade school, what's your daily schedule look like on a daily basis? What time do you start?
So I normally try to get to work by 7. If there's stuff going on, I'll get there earlier. The kids, we have to be there at 7:30, and then we let the kids into the classroom at 7:45. School actually starts at 8, but I like to get there early, make sure I have everything set up, and then I can walk you through my schedule with the kids too. So I do morning meeting, which is one of my favorite parts of the day. It's part of our social and emotional learning system. So it lasts it can be like 10, 15 minutes. Sometimes if it's a great topic, we go longer. And the kids get to kind of explore their emotions. They get to share with each other things that they might fear, things that they're excited about. And it's like a very safe place for them to learn.
Right.
One of the cool things I started with them is that they lead it. So like I'll ask them a question. I'll start with a student and they all listen. And then when that student's done, they'll call on the next person to share. And so they're kind of in charge of orchestrating it. And it's nice. Sometimes there'll be like a fun, energizing video for them, or they'll talk about their emotions. There'll be like emojis up on the board, and they'll have to pick one to explain why they're feeling that way. And then after that, we do our language arts block. So I have whole group time with them, but my favorite time is small group time. So I work with them in groups of like 3 to 6 students, depending on their needs. And it's on their level. And it's like, that's when they get to feel so successful. During the whole group time, I gear it to kind of where the middle of the class is, and then I differentiate. But during small group time, they really get to shine then. So I spend an hour doing that with them, and I see 2 to 3 groups that day. While I'm working with them, other students are independently reading. They love buddy reading. And I really like it because we spend so much time on technology, but they actually like to rush through getting this program they do, iReady. They want to get through that so that they can buddy read or independent read. I'm like, yeah, get in books. So it's awesome. And then after that, we transition into our math time. So it's the same kind of concept. I do whole group and then small group to work with them. And then they have lunch and fine arts. And then at the end of the day, we do science and social studies. And that's another time where I love that any kid gets to shine. It does not matter ability level, like where they're at. They all really like to like investigate things, explore. So that's awesome. And then at the end of the day, I normally do another small group with any students who are struggling, just to give them some extra help.
Love it.
Yeah.
And end of the day, what time is that?
So the kids dismiss at 2:00,
Okay.
and then my day goes till 3:00, and then I'm normally there after that, depending on what time of year it is. Sometimes I'm there till 5. It just depends. And then I go tutor, so I get more time with kids, and I love that too because I love the individualized time with them, getting to work on whatever skills they really need. And then I go to 9 rounds, and
Brilliant.
yeah,
Get that
Yeah,
workout
it's
in,
nice.
really
Yeah.
self-punching out.
Yes. And I'm also part of PTO at my school. So I'm the treasurer. So I am involved with a lot of the programs and things, extra events that we do.
Brilliant.
So, yeah.
Our viewers, your time is up for your trivia question. So the difference between secondary school and high school is that it's just 2 different systems. So one is British and the other one is American. So England, they call it secondary, and in the US, it is called high school. But it comes to the same thing. By the way, happy summer.
Yes.
School
Yes.
break. Are you teaching any
Yes.
summer school?
I'm just tutoring. So my family likes to travel. So we normally travel for 2 weeks during the summer, and it's hard to do summer school and that because they need teachers for the full time. So I tutor. So I tutor about 5 hours a week. It's some of the same kids that I have during the school year, and I love it because I miss the kids. And I get to stay in my routine and my schedule, and it's nice. I think it's nice for the kids too because they're not tired from being in school all day
Right.
and then having to tutor, so they're like fresh. We really get to dive into stuff.
Love
So,
it.
yeah.
I know sometimes people, or some teachers are like, yeah, summertime.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like it, but I miss it. I do. I miss my routine. I miss seeing their smiling faces, and I do need a break. Sometimes we all do, but I feel like it's enough of a break to not have it all day, every day, but I still get to do what I love. So,
And the drive you had, so as a child, did you ever thought of being a teacher?
I think it started pretty early on. I always loved kids,
Okay.
and I liked thinking about the way I learned. And then thinking about how other people would learn, it always interested me. When I was in high school, I started working it was only a week here and there at a camp over the summer. It's called Camp Invention. It was like nerd camp, but it was awesome. It was like putting, like investigations and putting things together. And I loved that. And then on the opposite, a lot of these kids were highly, highly intelligent, had families that backed them, that were always
Right.
there for them. But then on the opposite end, I also worked at a camp that was for underprivileged kids. And so people sponsored them to go to this camp. And this was a sleepaway camp. And it was my favorite week of the summer because the joy that these kids had, they had so much less than other people had in material things, but the joy they had in their heart, I loved seeing that. So I wanted to merge that. I wanted to have both, give them the investigation part, give them the love for learning and knowing that they could do everything. So now I actually teach, our school does inclusion, which I love. So I don't know how it is in other countries, but I know when I was growing up, there was a general education classroom, and then there could be a special class,
Right,
and it was
definitely.
students that
Yeah.
struggled, and so it was very much separated, and you felt different, and we don't agree with that. Our school, we do all inclusion, and that is what I love. So I have students that have autism, I have students that have learning disabilities, Down syndrome, and I've had students who have had a prosthetic leg and arm. So it's been an incredible learning experience for me, for them, and for other students who have not experienced this. So I really like that I got to merge everything together. Kids that have access to everything, kids that might not, and they're all in a class together. It's like the world function. So it's
True.
very a very realistic setting. And when you're in my class, you're equal,
Correct.
So
It's just
yeah.
right, not in a different.
yeah, there's
everybody's-
nothing. Yeah, everyone has different needs,
Correct.
but you all
Right.
deserve the same thing. Yeah, you're all
All right.
entitled to the same thing.
So a
So
little bit less of a diversity
Yeah.
in terms of the Down syndrome
Yeah,
versus
yeah.
normal kids and stuff.
yeah, so
Or
it's
different able.
Yeah, and it's really nice because some of the students that I have that don't have a disability, they have never experienced a student with one, and And so it's a great learning experience for them to show compassion and to also see kids that never give up. Like a lot of my students that have special needs are the ones that have the most drive of any of my students. So it's really cool.
Love it,
Yeah.
love it. And thanks for being an educator. Do you believe education is important to help with poverty, ignorance, and
I do. And I think it's very important for students to understand like the way the world works, the world that they're growing up in. And I think it's nice when they come to school, none of their socioeconomic status matters. Like they have access to everything that they need. And I have a variety at my school. We have some extremely affluent people and we have Section 8 housing, which is paid housing,
Right.
right next to the school. And they all have the same access, which is how it should be. I mean, they should have access to that. And I talk to the students about that so that they understand that people come from all walks of life, from all different situations, and it kind of opens their eyes and makes them more compassionate to others and realizes like we all should feel lucky that we're being able to be educated.
so right, we could get out or achieve whatever we
Yeah,
achieve?
yeah,
Because St. Lucia has two Nobel laureate winners. One of them is for English literature,
yeah,
and one is for economics.
yeah.
But his name is Sir Arthur Lewis, and one of his quotes, I could be wrong, I can't remember off my head, but he believed that his exact words probably the quote was education is one of the fundamental cures to poverty.
Yeah.
Because coming from an island, there's not resources, but with education,
Right.
it can open up.
When you read, you can do anything,
Correct,
like,
stuff
and
like
it
that.
is, and that's one of the first things I do with students, and I tell their parents this. I'm like, for them to learn, they have to love coming to school. A kid who hates coming to school is not going to be like, okay, teach me, and so I want them to develop a love for learning and not have a negative relationship with it. And I tell them, if you knew all this stuff, you wouldn't need to come. So it's okay to struggle. You're going to get stronger from that. But I try to instill this like love for learning, that school is a positive place so that they continue that view moving forward. And I try to show them the great places they can go with it. Showing them people in history who struggled, who came from nothing and then aspired for something and they reached it. So
Definitely. And what about kids who doesn't like school? Because it's out there, it's
you're
real.
absolutely. So
What do you tell those kids?
a lot of the time,
Oh, mommy, I
it's-
hate school. I don't want to go to school.
a lot of the time it's because they're not engaged. I'm not doing something that's engaging them. So I try to find what does engage them and use that incorporated in my teaching or use it as a reward system. And then like kids who say they don't like reading, most of the time it's either tricky for them or they haven't found something that they enjoy reading. So if I can either show them that even in a good fit book for them, they can go on an adventure in the book, or say, okay, what topic do you like? Find those books, then they start to enjoy it and they start to see, okay, this is for me too. And they might not like every single part of the day or every subject, but if they can find a part of the day that's really good for them, then at least they have something to look forward to. And the other part then kind of rises with it. But that's what I was saying, science time, I feel like for a lot of kids, I don't know a lot of kids that don't like to explore things, they're all curious. They ask questions, they want to get their hands dirty, so that's a really good time. And so during that time, I get to see what their interests are. And I can incorporate them later. And I do a lot of listening during morning meeting. I used to lead it. And so I was doing a lot of the talking, and you always know you can learn a lot more by listening to someone.
Very
So
true. Yeah.
while the kids are sharing, I'm jotting notes. Okay, so-and-so shared this, so-and-so shared this. So then I can incorporate that when I'm doing small group. We pick books on that topic. So it's like a puzzle trying to figure each kid out.
Definitely.
But once you figure them out, you're like, okay, now I can really reach them. That's nice.
Love it. What's your take on homeschool?
So it was interesting enough. My sister has homeschooled her kids, and as a public school teacher, I value the routine, the schedule, the socialization, fine arts, all of those things, and the rigor of the curriculum, the accessibility to different services that students need that you can't get outside of, you can apply for therapy, things like that, but you don't get it as much when you're outside and people aren't held as accountable. But I also see the benefits of homeschooling. So a lot of people started that during COVID. They're like, I don't want to stick my kid in front of a computer. And honestly, I didn't blame them because it was hard for everyone. And so they would find a curriculum, do something with their child, and then a lot of them traveled. And that's something that my sister and her family got to do that was incredibly valuable. They had firsthand learning, instead of learning about turtles from a book, they went to a loggerhead, to a
Right.
center, and learned about turtles
Saw it
firsthand.
live,
Yeah.
yeah.
They would go on trips and do that. But I think that it depends on the child. It really does, and it depends on the family. And one thing I always caution them on is if you're going to put them back into a public school later on, what that transition will look like. Kids are resilient, but when you've been in the same pattern for so long, I think it's difficult to go back. They have to kind of relearn or to learn, and a teacher doesn't know. They kind of expect them to having gone through like
Yes.
all these years. So I guess I understand both sides of it. I like the accountability that's in a public school system with the curriculum, with standards. You know exactly where the child is at and that they're reaching certain standards. I'm not as familiar with homeschool curriculum to be able to I'm
Right.
sure there are great ones out there to speak on that, but I understand both times because I value family. I value that time together, and I think there's more flexibility with homeschool. So
Fantastic.
yeah.
From grad school, when you graduated from, you've been in the grade school system education
Yeah.
over 12 years. From when you started until now, what are the changes? What are shifts? Give me two things that
In schools
in
or
school,
yes,
in the system,
yes.
the grad school, grade school,
Schools,
sorry,
yeah.
not grad, not yet. It's just 6, 7 year old
Yeah, right.
in grad school, that would be brilliant. But grade school, what 12 years ago and today, what are the biggest difference you've seen?
So it's from two directions. I am
Okay.
very fortunate where I teach that my principal gives us a lot of lets us use our judgment on what parts of the curriculum we use and what we don't, because one size doesn't fit all, and so some principals are like, you have to do this by the book, and she doesn't. So I'm very lucky with that, but I have seen other places where there is a lot more overreach from the district, from higher up, and from, I guess, the communities of wanting to know exactly what's going on. And so everything has to be so documented that you spend so much time doing paperwork, doing an inventory of something, answering all these questions. And I understand that accountability, but it takes away from the time that we could be planning stuff for kids. So I would say that's been a huge shift in lessening our flexibility with what we teach, but I'm fortunate where I am that she understands the value
Right.
of that. So she lets us kind of make some of those choices on our own, and she backs us with it. I've seen a lot of change as well with parental involvement, and I think there's a few reasons for it. Some have been more involved, some less involved, but I think it's a generational thing. I think everyone is incredibly busy. Everyone is working their tails off, to make ends meet. And so a lot of times it's okay, hopefully the school will be able to fix this, because by the time parents get home from work, they're exhausted. When I was growing up,
parents are depending more on the school.
I do.
For more.
And it's not that all parents are
Right.
like that, but I think it's even with questions that they have with something that's going on at home. They're like, well, what do you think we should do? It's kind of like we've become teacher, therapist, everything.
Right.
And I don't mind doing that because I like knowing the whole family, but I think everyone is just overwhelmed with the world right now. So a lot of it is like they're trying to deal with their own things, their home. And so they're like, I don't necessarily have time to do all of these things with my kid. I do have amazing parents and tons of parents that are involved and do those things. I just noticed an overall shift in that
Right.
with involvement. So I'm always really thankful when I have parents are involved, but I'm also sympathetic to those that are not able to be. It's not intentional. I think they just have a lot going on in life. And so I try to, anytime that happens and the child is struggling, I try to give them something that's conducive to the environment at home, something that they can do with an older sibling, or that only takes a few minutes a night where it doesn't take away from family time too.
Love
Yeah.
What about? I'm curious about shift. And we deal with kids, right? 6, 7 year olds.
Oh
Security.
yeah, there's been a huge.
Security
Oh
is
yeah.
a big. So again,
Yeah.
I'm drilling a bit hard, but so 12 years ago, and now is there a
So-
more doors a lot
Absolutely.
more?
So I remember the
metal
day
detectors in
the
schools.
day after Sandy Hook. So it was I can't remember what year it was, but I remember we always had our doors unlocked.
Right,
It was
school
open door.
was
Yeah, I
free,
mean the
come
front door,
anytime.
everything. Yeah, everything was.
You have to check any front desk.
And on that same note, I think that's also why it's hard with parental involvement because of security with that too. It's not parents' fault. It's just there's been a shift because of security as well. So I remember the day after Sandy Hook, we all had to lock our doors constantly. The kids are not allowed to get the door. They're like, even if it's mom, principal, whoever at the door, whoever is supposed to get in, they will have a key if they're supposed to come in. We have incredible systems in place. It's just terrible that this is the world we're living in, that we have to do this. But we have our entire perimeter is sealed. We have school police officers on campus. Anyone has to go through the office. They go through our security system. And then anytime they're coming to the classroom, they buzz ahead of time. So if someone shows up at my door and they weren't buzzed down, or they hadn't buzzed down to me, I know they're not supposed to be there. What's absolutely insane is that kids are just accustomed to doing code red drills. So they know that if we're doing a drill, it means someone's that's not supposed to be on campus. We need to check them out. So we go through a drill, we go into the bathroom, we get secure, and it's just insane for these 6 and 7-year-olds that this is normalcy. I guess it's similar. I know when my parents were young, like they had bomb drills, essentially.
Right.
They had that, but it's just crazy because it's like, and oh yeah, we're having a code red. Okay, it's like no big deal. And I'm like, we shouldn't be desensitized to this because this is serious stuff. But I do feel very secure. I just wish we didn't have to feel that way. In the same sense too, it has limited parents on campus. So we used to be able to have like parents coming in having lunch all the time. We've had to eliminate that. And a lot of times if parents did that, then I would be like, okay, come on into the classroom or do whatever. So that's limited. I try to have parents in as much as I can. I try to have like a day or two a month where we're doing a STEM activity. And I'm like, okay, come in, you can run a station. Because I know it's important for them, for the kids. It's nice for me to see the family, to meet them. But there are times during testing, during different things, if there's been a security thing going on, that we can't do that. So that I feel like that's been a shift. And it's a shame because I remember growing up, like my mom was at school for every event. There are so many events.
Right.
And I think because it has become such an ordeal with security to have certain events, they tend to not want to go through that or not do it. So it lessens.
Very understandable. And what about technology? From when you started, you probably was grading. Every podcast go on.
I mean, we had to fill everything.
Everything's online now.
Everything's digital.
So the parents could see everything online.
Yeah.
So,
everything. I know. I'm just thinking because I was probably an embarrassment to technology during COVID too. I feel like that was a really big changing point. Prior to that, it was like a slow progression of like a new kind of technology. Right. We have a document camera. We had projectors at first. We would have things. But then I feel like it became full swing during COVID. We all learned about like Google Meets and all these different programs to reach out to kids. And in one sense, it's great because it's super engaging. But I'm also don't want kids staring at a screen all day, even if it's engaging to them. I want them hands-on in books, paper, experiments, those types of things. So it's fun to find like a nice balance where you do a little bit of each day. But yeah, we all have smart boards now in our classrooms. So I'm just laughing, thinking about myself trying to learn how to use it.
So I guess you're not really tech savvy.
No, I'm not. And
okay.
All the kids have Chromebooks, and sometimes they'll switch to like the screen visually is sideways, and I'm like, I don't know how to fix this. So I'll like be like, does anyone know how to fix this? And of course, one of the other kids does. They'll come over and fix it for us. But I think it's really cool because it's made the kids' mind work in a different way. I just don't want them to become dependent on it. There have been days where our Wi-Fi has gone down and they're like, what are we going to do? I'm like, read books, like, we're going to survive. Yeah. And I'm like, so it's funny.
Because the kids is not.
No, they're like, but our computers. I'm like, it's okay. We have papers. So
love it.
Yeah.
What's the most, give me 2 things you love, like being a grade school teacher?
every kid is different.
Okay.
And I love that because I am never bored. There is
Okay.
always something entertaining coming out of their mouths. I've had kids call me turkey heads at Thanksgiving,
Turkey head.
mad at me. Yeah, it was very festive.
Okay.
But they are all so different and incredible in each of their own ways. And I love that. I love the puzzle of trying to figure each kid out. Because it's a challenge, but then when you make it work, it's so rewarding. So I love that, and I love that I get to teach them about kindness. That is one of I'm like, in my classroom, we are kind. And I love that I get to have that impact on kids. Like I said, that morning meeting time is one of my favorite times. Yes, I want to teach them content and curriculum, but I want them to be good people. And I think that's probably the most important. And so I love that part so I get to learn each one of the little puzzle pieces and make them kind puzzle pieces.
Love it. And I know you have lots of challenges. Everybody does. You have struggles. Give me one challenge of your
sometimes
daily task.
I have students. I think it goes back to what you said. A child who doesn't love school or who is frustrated by something and I want to fix it right away, and that's not always going to happen. It takes time. So
that boils down to your patience. So you have lack of patience.
Well, I have a lot of patience with kids, but when I can't fix something, I'm impatient with myself because I'm like, I want to fix this. I want this kid to feel happy. I want them to feel successful. And when I can't do that, it's extremely frustrating. And it takes time. It's trial and error trying to figure out, okay, what is going to help this kid? And if I can't figure it out, I'm like, okay, it's okay. We're going to try something new tomorrow. We're going to go through this and giving it time. And sometimes it doesn't work and you can start all over. But again, when it clicks, it's so rewarding. So it's more like being like, it's okay if it doesn't work this day. There are going to be days like that. It's like telling myself that. But
definitely.
Yeah.
And then the kids, I believe, always watching you. So you're like a role model at the school. They're always watching. They always pay attention.
Yes.
To things you wear. You may not realize it, but kids are always.
They do. We had at the end of the school year, we had like dress up days, and it was like dress up as what you want to be when you grow up, and one of them dressed up as me, and it was really cute, but it was during a time.
When I grow up, you're gonna be like.
It was during a time when I would always have my hair up and braided, and I would always wear my sunglasses on my head. So the child came in like that, and it was really cool. But I was like, wow, they really do watch everything about you, and so you have to be really cognizant of that because you want it to be a positive influence on them. And I am all about apologizing too. Like if I make a mistake in something I say, the way I react, sometimes I lose my patience, and I'll go back and I'll apologize and explain why it happened, what I should have done differently, or if it was warranted, why I did that. But I always try to explain the why behind something. But it makes me become much more aware of my appearance, the way I talk, the way I treat people. They see when I'm speaking to another student, they observe that, and then they'll turn around and do that to someone else. So I want to make sure I'm speaking, it might be firmly, but kindly, so that they see how to treat others. Yeah.
If you had a choice, those kids, those grade schoolers, they had to learn one subject for the day. Everything else is gone. One subject that will get them ready for life.
I think
get them ready.
Reading,
to
because
take on life.
you can integrate everything else in it.
Reading.
Yeah, I think reading is the most valuable.
Okay. You heard that?
Yeah, I mean, all of them are, but you can
correct. That's the only important.
Yeah.
You only choose one.
Yeah.
To get them ready for life.
I think because there's characters that you
correct.
can learn
yes.
from in them. It's all of
again. That's I'm gonna learn from you. Okay.
Those
all
right.
Life
There's
no wrong answer.
Yeah. No. There's like life skills. You can read nonfiction, and so. That I think that's why I love teaching reading so long, doing the reading and writing. I've loved having them all day now, the same group, because then I get to know them so well. And if a kid's having a bad day in the morning, then at least I see them in the afternoon to be like, you turned it around, awesome. You don't always get to do that if they switch classes.
Very true.
But I do. I have such a passion for
love it.
For literacy.
So what's next in chapter phase? You're a grade school teacher right now.
Yeah.
Vice president, principal. What do you see?
I've thought about a few of those things. Superintendent.
Yeah, there's so much.
I've thought about a few of those things. I did do ESC push-in for a year, so that is where some of the students that I have, you push into the classroom and you give them extra support. But other than that, I've only taught first grade, and I love that year because it's such a transitional year. They learned so many of the foundational skills. So I think that's why I've never moved out of it. I love it. And so, but other people have told me maybe go into leadership, and that would be vice principal, principal going up. And someday I might do that, but I would miss being in the classroom with my students. That year that I did the EIC push-in, I missed having my own classroom the whole time. But that is something I would probably do. It's not necessarily, it's a side, it's a
Right.
not a step up. It's the similar to teaching, but I think it would be something different to do. You would be working with students who are struggling, having difficulties the whole day, but it's extremely rewarding. I think if I ever moved up or did anything else, I would want to do like a coaching kind of position where you get to
Okay.
coach teachers and work with students kind of
I
at
can
the
see
same
that.
time. And I have so much respect for principals and assistant principals. I think I would just miss being with the kids. So it might be later, later in life, I might be like, okay, I'm tired.
Yeah, when you
tired.
feel it, definitely.
Yeah.
Now, teachers grow, like some teachers have a bad day. Everybody has bad
Yeah.
days. Some just feel they underappreciated. They feel they don't get paid.
Yeah.
Like that,
Or
rough.
the
They go
kids
back.
didn't get it today. And I'm
Correct. So how do you do
Yeah.
frustration? What do you do to release some stress or steam?
I used to have a really hard time with that, with giving myself that grace that it's okay to have a bad day. It's okay. A parent gets mad, they're having a bad day, and I had a really hard time with that. But talking to other teachers about it or talking to others, and you realize a lot of times that if you're having difficulty with someone else, it's not necessarily something that you did. A lot of times it's something that's going on with them. So I try to be like empathetic towards that, and even just kind of come back around and I'll be like, I'm really sorry about the conversation we had, is there something I can do to help,
Right.
and that helps. But say that a student is struggling with something, I write it down. I'm like, we will address this tomorrow. And I always think there's always tomorrow. And I and I know that's not always the case in a lot of
right.
but it is.
Okay, it helps. It helps you.
It does. It helps me get
That's
through
what helps
it.
you get through that.
Yeah. And I'm like, I will get
Do
through
you
it
punch?
tomorrow.
Do you work
I
out?
was gonna say.
How
and
often do
then-
you work out?
And then after that, daily, I go to 9 rounds and I get to. It is such a physical, mental, emotional release for me. So it's the best because you can't be upset when you're in there, and even if you walk in upset, you're not going to walk out upset. So
Brilliant.
yeah,
Fantastic.
it's the best.
So if I call your top 3 closest person in your life,
Yeah.
ask them who's Michelle, what would they say? One word.
I would say, at first I was going to say happy, but now I'm thinking, no, I think happy. I try to be happy in everything, or positive. I think that's a better word, positive, because it's not always a good situation, but I try to be positive from it. So I would say positive.
Lovely. So the grade school teacher, actually running out of time. I'm having fun there. Sorry. So we're gonna wrap up. If you had to change, you have the power to change anything in the grade school system in the US. What would that be?
Smaller class sizes.
Smaller class sizes.
Yes.
So if Michelle had the power to change, so teachers will be listening.
Yeah.
One thing in the grade school system in the US, you would bring it down to smaller.
Because
I understand why
the
smaller,
benefits
especially
of-
more love for the kids.
Yeah.
There's many reasons. Brilliant.
Yes.
All right. Final words of so teachers, Michelle gonna share with you. I hope some words of wisdom.
Yeah.
I know you're frustrated. Like,
I know.
what would you
I
tell
was
for
gonna
your
say-
fellow teachers or anybody who wants to be a teacher?
I was gonna say, teachers going through it right now, we've got this.
Okay.
There are the ups and downs, but there are amazing ups. The teachers that are going into it, I know it's scary because you hear all these scary things, but when you stop thinking about all that and you just think about the kids and their faces and their smiles, and when they get it, it makes all of the challenges and the scary stuff worth it.
worth
So
it.
stick with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you
Yes.
for vibing
Thank
with
you.
this marvelous
Yes.
viewers. Thanks for vibing with us. Appreciate y'all. See you next week Tuesday. And remember, be
Marvelous.
thank you. Very much appreciate it.
They do. Okay.